Okay, so today we're actually going to be working on the car. Now, as you may notice, it's in a really insane difference from the last time I updated. I've got the transmission completely disconnected, pretty much. I do have to work on the underside. I have to take the starter out and remove the flywheel bolts so that I can actually get it out, and then take the bell housing bolts out. But it's ready to come out. As such, what I need to do is actually remove the subframe. Okay, now I have broken free the bolt here, the bolt up there, and the same on the other side, and one of the bolts in the back on this side. Okay, the next thing to do is to break the bolts on the other side, and then put I'm going to get a nice long piece of wood, the same one that was chucking the car. You can see it right there. Chucking the car up, I'm going to put that across my jack so it goes across both of the rails of the subframe. And I'm going to jack the car up even higher so that I can get it up, because it's getting a bear to work on. I think the ground is sinking a little bit under it, and I want to get this done as quickly as possible from now on. As a result, you can even see, I think the jack there is starting to lean. As a result, I'm going to move it up higher into the air. I'm going to put the jack stands higher. I may even get my larger jack stands from the car, from inside the car. The transmission has been drained. Okay, proof of concept here. We've got it across both of the frame rails there, hitting that one. You can see it kind of hitting that one over there. It does make a little bit of contact, very slight contact with the oil pan, so that's okay. Anyways, that'll allow me to remove the front two bolts. They are 19s. I've already as I said before, I've already broken them free. Okay, so they should come right on out. Sometimes I hate this ratchet. Most useful thing I've ever bought, but it sometimes just gets me a pain in my ass. It gets to be a pain in my ass because of this stupid swivel. Especially when you don't have two hands to work it. Anyway. Okay, so that's one out. I'm gonna put it up here with some of the rest of the stuff that I've taken out. Okay, I'm gonna go take care of the other side. Okay, so we've got bolt number 2 out. Kind of rusty and in bad shape. Again, it's gonna go up here on the fender. Well, not the fender, the bumper support, I guess is what you call that. I'm gonna move to the back. Okay, next 3 bolts are these 3 right here. I'm not sure whether I have to take all 3 out or whether I can just get away with this front one here. But I don't think so. I think I gotta take all 3 out. Okay, so that's coming next. That plate should fall. I got that triangular plate off. Exact duplicate of the plate on this side. But before we do that, I want to talk about a couple of things quickly. When you're dropping this subframe, make sure to look at everything. Oh crud, that's loose. Okay. Anyways, be sure to look at everything. Okay, because like these little things need to be disconnected, and there's a couple along this side of the frame. Okay, so that you don't end up tugging things out of where they go when you drop the frame. Okay, we're going to we're going to hike this back up. Okay. Okay. That's just supporting the frame at the moment. Okay. So that it doesn't drop on me or some silly thing like that. Now, on these triangular pieces over here, which I'm going to try and get down to because this side has all the parts that I've taken off of the car. Okay, on these triangular pieces over here, under the back of the subframe, back here, where is it? Okay, now, there. Okay. Under these pieces, the rear two bolts, the ones farthest away from the camera, are 14s. The front is a 19. The front is the hard one to break. If you need to, use a impact wrench or something like that. But it should be breakable by hand. It's just a pain in the neck. Okay, so magic of editing will have that piece off. Okay, so the pieces are out. All that's holding it in is these bolts on either side, which I'm going to remove, and it should fall directly down. I've got to, as I started off by doing, started with the jack, putting that up to place. So all it should take is these two bolts, and it should lower down on the jack and slide right on out. These, by the way, are 19s. Same with everything around the exterior, except those two 14s. Okay, that's one out. If it's rusted, by the way, you can spray some anti-seize or rust buster, WD-40, whatever you want to call, up through there and hit most of the bolt. But anyways, it's loose. By the way, transmission coming out. Okay, second side out. Now let's lower the jack, and the subframe should fall right out. Don't lower the jack too quickly. Don't lower the jack too quickly. Okay, so it didn't fall completely out. Still being held on by something. Okay, so as you may have seen just a second ago, the subframe didn't just drop out like I had thought it would. It came close. Just about everything was disconnected except the back motor mount goes over top of the power steering pump and is secured to the frame, so to the subframe. So I'm going to have to unbolt those two bolts on either side. You can see there, and if you look down in, come on, give me focus. If you look down below that right there, the just about dead center of your screen, you're gonna have to remove that as well. Okay, I don't know whether you can hear me over the compressor, but while I'm waiting for that to charge, the first two came out. I'm just working on the last one. It's at the very back. It's hard to see. Don't miss it. It shouldn't be too hard to miss, but it's there and you definitely need to get it out. Okay? Okay, so those back mount bolts are out. I'm hoping that that takes care of everything, because it looks like there isn't anything else holding the car in. So we're going to try this again. Give this another try. And the subframe free! The subframe free! Yes, yes, yes! Okay, so it's out. It slid basically right out like I assumed it would as soon as I got rid of those 3 bolts. Okay, the only thing was that since I wasn't able to disconnect the O2 sensor in the front half of the exhaust, that's run in between the frame here and the sway bar. As a result, I had to clip a zip tie in order to remove the exhaust, so that so I could slip the connector for that under the sway bar and remove the exhaust. Now, as you may notice, it is dirty as all get out. Okay, so what I'm going to hopefully be able to do is clean it and treat it. Now, the bushings look to be in pretty good shape. Maybe this one needs to be replaced. I'm going to hopefully source a set of urethane bushings to push into and use in this particular application. That'll stiffen up the front end a lot. I also want to source a Aero sway bar. Now that I got this one out, I know one of the things I do know is I need to replace these end links at some point, because they are shot. Both sides are shot completely. It's probably causing some ride issues and handling issues. Okay, and if you want to see, okay, you want to see these, okay, notice the sway bar link, okay, the bushing is completely shot on it. Okay, this is a 17. You need to slip a 17 open-ended, and this is an 18 or 19. Okay, this side looks to be shot as well. It's pretty floppy. Hopefully I'll be able to take care of those things before I put it back in the car. Okay, but in general, it's out. Next thing to come is the transmission. Okay, so normally I would have stopped the video there, but I'm going to work on prepping this to come out. That's going to be larger than a 15. Larger than a 15. Okay, so I've got this mount here that needs to come out. Okay, this is going to go on to be used on a new transmission. This whole bracket I'm going to take off just in case it gets transferred. I haven't even looked at the new transmission yet, so maybe. Okay, so as you can see, this is my setup for tools. Not the best way, but hey, anyways, was definitely not a 15, maybe a 17 will work. Looks like it's a 17. Okay, that's the wrong way. Ow. May not be a 17. It may be a 16. Okay, so it is. Looks like it's a 16 or 5/8, however you want to put it. Let's get a nice breaker bar here and a 5/8 to go on it. Yes, I do have to make this work a lot, but then again, I need to lose weight anyways, so might as well do it that way. Okay, so we got this on here like so. Okay, there are 3 bolts on this that look to be holding it on. what I could really use is a cameraman. But hey, there's only so much room in here. Anyway. Okay, that's far enough out that it's definitely... Come out by hand. Okay. One bolt. Two bolts. Okay, now having removed that, what I'm going to do is lay the bolts through the holes. Okay, that's interesting. Why is that? I guess that's threaded on that side. Okay, I'm going to place the bolts through the holes and add this to the pile of stuff I've already taken off. Okay, it looks like the transmission is insanely ready to go. Okay, the only thing left to do is pull the starter in the back, which I'm going to do in just a second. Put a mount under the, put a jack stand up under the front here to keep this from breaking that motor mount there, and then I'm going to pull the transmission. Put a jack under that and pull the transmission. I'm going to use the front bolts to keep it from falling until I'm ready for it. Actually, no, I'm not going to use even the front bolts. I'm going to use the actual transmission mount to keep it from falling until I'm ready for it. When I put the drain plug for the transmission back in, I didn't tighten it down all the way. And the result is that I got a whole bunch of leaking, so I put down some key litter. I'm going to sweep that up, I'm going to climb under the car, and I'm going to finish removing the transmission. Okay, so next is to get this bolt and the starter out, at which point I could rotate the flywheel, which you can see right there beyond it, and get the flywheel bolts out. Wait a second. Here. That looks like I could almost rotate the flywheel, crank it over and get at the flywheel bolts right there. Let's see whether that's possible. That does look possible. I'm not the only one seeing that, right? I'm like, seriously? Yeah. Looks like the bolts can be seen through the middle of that. Okay, so let's give this a try. Okay, as I started to allude before in the previous video, I can crank this engine over and get to each and every one of the bolts through a little hole in the that you can almost see back there. Let's see, come on, get it. And see that bolt right there? That's through a little hole in the plate there, and I can get a wrench on that. It's size 13. The crank bolt here is a size 16 or 5/8. Okay, and I can crank over and get to each of those bolts. So that's going to be my next job. So, after much work, I got these two. I got a chain under the car, under the engine, being held up by a hoist. Okay, to keep the engine from falling on me and so forth. I'm going to put a jack under the transmission in a minute when I go to release the transmission mount. But I wanted to point out two bolts that I missed. They're being hidden by the chain right now, but they're right next to the starter. I got those two bolts out. I got all the underside bolts out. This is the system I'm using to hold the engine up for the moment. I'm going to release all the bell housing bolts that are on the top, which are the only ones that are remaining, and then the transmission should basically fall right out. And as you can see, the transmission is actually free. The only thing left is to unbolt that engine mount right there in the middle, right there, this thing right here, and then lower it down on the jack. You will notice that I have a jack supporting it. Do not do this without a jack supporting it, as it will fall straight down. I do not plan on reusing this transmission. But if you plan on reusing the transmission, in other words, you are replacing the clutch for some reason and following these steps, okay, you will want to make sure that the transmission does not fall straight down. That would be a bad thing. Anyways, continuing on. Okay, so we moved on. As you may notice, the engine is out, and I bolted the flywheel with 2 bolts to test fit everything, make sure everything works, get everything into the correct placement and everything. Okay, in order to get this done, let's put that someplace where it won't get lost. In order to get the transmission out, there were 2 things blocking it that I realized midway through last video. The one of which is the starter, which you will now notice is missing right there in the almost dead center of the screen. It has 2 bolts, one on the top, one on the bottom. It is a reverse Torx. Okay, it's somewhere between a 9mm and a 10. I should say they're somewhere between a 9mm and a 10. The bell housing bolts were all 18 and 17s. The other thing I needed to take out was the upper mount. I had it unbolted, but the transmission still wouldn't come out. I had to end up taking it completely off the transmission before the transmission would come loose. It's 3 bolts, 1 Torx, that's T40, and 2 13mm bolts. They both have thick washers on them, so be careful with that so you don't lose those. Okay. The flex plate bolts are all 17s. There are 6 or 7 of them. Okay, and it looks like they are all reusable from the automatic to the manual, so you won't have to buy any new ones. I've got 2 in there. They seem to work just fine. The splines on this flywheel that I have are exactly the same and in almost the same position as the automatic, so that should be just fine. I shouldn't have any troubles running the starter, rerunning the starter that I got with it, that I got with the car, I should say. Be careful with the transmission. It is a 60, 70, 80, it's a pretty heavy lump, let's just call it that. And as a result, if you want to make sure that you don't hurt yourself, use jacks and try and keep it under control as best as possible, because if it lands on your foot or your face, it's going to do some serious damage. The flex plate is here. I've taken it completely out. I'm not going to reuse it, but it is in good shape, reasonably. I might sell that. There was no way to get the bolts out without an air gun, by the way. I later figured out that you could put in a ratchet onto the, if you take a look there, there's a ratchet on the crank bolt there. And once I did that, I was able to work on the flywheel slash flex plate bolts pretty much without hazard. That's going to be the end of this video. Let's see, is there anything else? No, I don't think there is anything else. If you decide to attempt this, don't be like me. Go find a shop that'll let you work. Okay? But if you do try to attempt this in your front yard, make sure that you have something to hold up the engine. This scaffolding here is exceedingly useful. I don't know how much they cost, but they are extremely necessary for this job. Currently, they are the only thing holding up the engine on the driver's side. So be careful. Don't get yourself hurt if you're going to do this. I am going to sort out and figure out the wiring. The next video will be me sorting out the wiring and figuring out what I need to keep and what I don't need to keep. And me doing measurements for the pressure plate, clutch plate, and transmission. So we'll actually get to pull out the transmission next time, the new transmission next time, and take a look at it. If you like the content, please feel free to like or leave a comment below. Hopefully both. If you want to continue to support me, the links for Patreon are down below. If you feel like just supporting me with just supporting me by, say, subscribing, please subscribe. I can use all the subscribers I can get. We're getting there. I'm going to finish the swap, and then we're going to do the timing and gaskets, and hopefully I'll get her running in the foreseeable future. I look forward to seeing everyone in the next one. Have fun.